Hey everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today we're diving into the life and reign of a sultan who often gets a bad rap in history, Sultan Selim II. Was he really the lazy, pleasure-seeking ruler some say he was, or is there more to the story? Let's find out. Selim II, also known as Selim the Blonde, was the son of the legendary Suleiman the Magnificent and his powerful wife, Hürrem Sultan. Born in 1524, Selim grew up in the shadow of his incredibly capable older brothers, Mustafa and Bayezid. Most people, including his own father, didn't expect him to ever take the throne. He wasn't the warrior prince his brothers were. Instead, he was known for his love of poetry, music, and the finer things in life. But as fate would have it, through a series of tragic and dramatic events, Selim found himself as the sole surviving heir. When Suleiman the Magnificent passed away during the siege of Shigetvar in 1566, the immense power of the Ottoman Empire fell squarely onto Selim's shoulders. So how did this prince, who preferred poetry to politics, handle becoming the ruler of one of the world's most powerful empires? Well, the first thing to understand is that Selim inherited a well-oiled machine. His father Suleiman had left behind a strong administration and, more importantly, a brilliant Grand Vizier named Sokolu Mehmed Pasha. Sokolu was the real power behind the throne for much of Selim's reign. He was a master statesman and military strategist who had served Suleiman faithfully. Selim was smart enough to recognize Sokolu's genius and basically let him run the day-to-day affairs of the empire. This decision was probably one of the best Selim ever made. It allowed the government to function effectively while he focused on other interests. This has led many historians to label Selim as the first do-nothing sultan, a ruler who delegated almost everything. But you could also argue it was a pragmatic choice. He knew his strengths and weaknesses and trusted an expert to handle what he couldn't. Under Sokolu's guidance, the Ottoman Empire continued to be a major player on the world stage. Just 2 years into Selim's reign, in 1568, a significant peace treaty was signed with the Habsburg Holy Roman Emperor, Maximilian II. This treaty brought a temporary end to decades of conflict in the Balkans and secured Ottoman control over territories in Hungary and Transylvania. It also included a yearly tribute payment from the Habsburgs to the Ottomans, a clear sign of the empire's continued dominance. On the Eastern Front, relations with the Safavid Empire in Persia remained relatively stable, continuing the peace established by the Treaty of Amasya years earlier. So, from a diplomatic standpoint, the early years of Selim's reign were quite successful, largely thanks to Sokolu Mehmed Pasha's expert management. However, not everything was peaceful. One of the most ambitious projects undertaken during this period was the Don-Volga Canal project. The idea was to connect the Don and Volga rivers, which would allow the Ottoman Navy to sail from the Black Sea into the Caspian Sea. This would have been a game changer. It would have allowed the Ottomans to challenge growing Russian influence in the region, bypass their Safavid rivals to trade directly with Central Asia, and support the Muslim Khanates there. In 1569, a large Ottoman force was sent to begin construction and to besiege Astrakhan, a key city controlled by Russia. Unfortunately, the campaign was a complete disaster. The harsh Russian winter, logistical nightmares, and fierce resistance from the Russian garrison and local tribes doomed the project. The Ottoman army suffered massive losses, and the dream of a Black Sea-Caspian waterway was abandoned. It was a major setback and a sign that the empire's reach had its limits. But the biggest military event of Selim's reign was undoubtedly the conquest of Cyprus in 1570. Cyprus was then a wealthy and strategic island controlled by the Republic of Venice. It was a thorn in the side of the Ottomans, a base for Christian pirates who preyed on Ottoman shipping and pilgrim routes to Mecca. Selim, reportedly a great lover of Cypriot wine, was personally determined to capture the island. Despite the reservations of his Grand Vizier Sokolu, who worried about provoking a major European alliance, Selim pushed forward. A massive Ottoman fleet and army were dispatched. The campaign was brutal. The Venetian-controlled cities of Nicosia and Famagusta put up fierce resistance. Nicosia fell after a 7-week siege, but Famagusta held out for nearly a year. The eventual fall of Famagusta in 1571 was a bloody affair that solidified Ottoman control over the eastern Mediterranean. The conquest of Cyprus sent shockwaves through Europe. In response, Pope Pius V successfully organized a Holy League, a coalition of major Catholic maritime powers, including Venice, Spain, the Papal States, and the Knights of Malta. Their goal was simple: to confront and destroy the Ottoman navy. The two fleets met on October 7, 1571, at the Battle of Lepanto, off the coast of western Greece. It was one of the largest naval battles in world history. The Holy League, under the command of Don John of Austria, achieved a decisive, crushing victory. The Ottoman fleet was almost completely annihilated. The news was met with celebration across Europe, and it shattered the myth of Ottoman invincibility at sea. You might think a defeat of this magnitude would cripple the Ottoman Empire, and in the short term, it was devastating. But what happened next is truly remarkable, and shows the incredible resilience of the empire. When an envoy came to the capital to discuss the aftermath, Grand Vizier Selim1566 Pasha famously told him, "In conquering Cyprus from you, we have cut off one of your arms. In defeating our fleet, you have only shaved our beard. A cut-off arm does not grow back, but a shorn beard grows back even thicker." And he wasn't just bluffing. In an astonishing feat of logistics and industrial power, the Ottomans rebuilt their entire fleet in a single winter. Shipyards worked around the clock, and by the spring of 1572, a new, even larger Ottoman navy was ready to set sail. The Holy League, fractured by internal rivalries, couldn't believe it. This rapid recovery allowed the Ottomans to reassert their dominance in the eastern Mediterranean. Venice, abandoned by its allies, was forced to sign a humiliating peace treaty in 1573, officially recognizing the Ottoman conquest of Cyprus, and even agreeing to pay a large war indemnity. Lepanto was a tactical victory for Europe, but a strategic victory for the Ottoman Empire. Beyond warfare and politics, Selim's reign saw significant architectural and cultural developments. The grand architect Mimar Sinan, who had served his father, continued his incredible work under Selim. His masterpiece, the Selimiye Mosque in Edirne, was completed during this period. Sinan himself considered it the pinnacle of his career, even greater than the Süleymaniye Mosque in Istanbul. With its massive dome and soaring minarets, it stands today as one of the highest achievements of Islamic architecture. Selim was also a patron of the arts, especially poetry. He wrote poems himself under the pen name Selimi. He was known to enjoy lavish parties, music, and intellectual gatherings at the palace, which contributed to his reputation for decadence but also fostered a vibrant court culture. So how did it all end for Selim II? Well, his death in 1574 is perhaps as famous as his life. According to several historical accounts, after a long session of drinking, the 50-year-old sultan slipped on the wet floor of a newly constructed bathhouse in the Topkapi Palace, hitting his head. He died from the resulting injury a few days later. It was an anticlimactic and rather undignified end for the ruler of a mighty empire. He was succeeded by his son, Murad III. So what's the final verdict on Selim II? Was he just Selim the drunkard, a lazy and incompetent ruler? Or was he a pragmatic sultan who understood his own limitations and wisely delegated authority to a brilliant vizier? The truth, as it often is, probably lies somewhere in the middle. He clearly wasn't a warrior sultan like his father or grandfather. His personal indulgences and detachment from state affairs are well documented. However, during his 8-year reign, the empire conquered Cyprus, rebuilt its entire navy after a catastrophic defeat, and maintained its vast territories. This was thanks in large part to the structures put in place by his father and the administrative genius of Selim1566 Pasha. Perhaps Selim's greatest contribution was simply not getting in the way. He let the experts do their jobs, and the empire, for the most part, continued to thrive. His reign marks a significant turning point, a shift away from the sultan as an all-conquering military leader to a more palace-bound figure, a trend that would continue for generations to come. What do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts on Selim II in the comments below. Was his hands-off approach a weakness or a hidden strength? Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into Ottoman history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next video. See you next time.